Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Good Times Hour. All right, B, take it away.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls around the world, please welcome to the tea our next guest. He's the guy who puts pork on his fork and likes to put the hork on the course with that weird two-finger, four-finger grip that makes the disc rip. He's the show to Ken kid, here to show us all he can spin a lid like the champ and the other champ, or any other pretender who might light the lamp. His form is pure silk with a power shine, the kind that has rocked the podium and socked me and Mace and the rest of them en route to a steep climb from pure recreational to pure professional. Never bored and always floored by the mysteries of life, banal and sublime, from the mystic circles swirling the rim of his gin to the margaritas with zesty salt and extra lime. Clouds in his coffee? Don't be vain, this gnarly veteran is a master rock hounding, topwater, bass grounding, small batch bourbon sipping, disc ripping, frisbee freak who can handle the big show more so than many can. Glow golf, snow golf, any day and in every way he will beat you with the sauce and the suave. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the smiling jock from Rock Island, Chris Sprague.
Man,
Nice.
yeah, I never know what to expect. It gets better every time.
So welcome. Thanks for taking the time and joining us on the show. We have probably more than an hour, maybe. Hopefully, if we stretch our limits here, we usually do. But we have a lot of material that we can possibly cover. It's totally open, but we have some areas we'd love to chat with you about, such as your origins, certain aspects of your career, the worlds, your KC, the importance of the KC Wide Open, the 2000s, tour life, living and training with Davery, Iowa, Kansas City, Camden 2, being among the elite of the Double Century Club, mentorship, and a case for the Hall of Fame. And maybe we'll get into a little bit of an Insta deep dive, but we can't let you go without doing our 20 questions. So before we even start, Mace, why don't you put on a tee for people out there who may not know who our illustrious, illuminating guest is tonight.
All right. Chris is definitely an old friend of both of ours. And he's joining us from the Quad Cities, but originally you're from Des Moines, right? Correct?
Des Moines kid.
Is that where you were born there as well?
No, Kuzi and Becky and John Latch and all that crew were the first ones to bring me in.
Nice.
That's a hell of a list right there, dude. I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've been a member of the PDJ since 2000, which is also the year you turned pro. You've played 469 events in your career, and you are a member of the Double Century Club. Over 100 wins and 100 grand in career earnings. All right, so let's talk about that. I mean, dude, that's pretty prestigious alone. Like, I'm probably in the 100 club, like the $100 and the 100 event club, maybe.
Got a career win.
Huh?
You have one career win.
One career win. So you've been doing your homework. I see. Yeah, that's pretty cool. South Carolina.
Well, I had to check and see if you played Graceland.
Yeah. I didn't play the tournament, but you in fact did several clinics there for me.
Yes,
two or three.
No, we did it with Nolan.
With Nolan for sure.
Yeah, you went on tour. You took Nolan on tour one year, and we picked up a clinic down there. And I kind of confabulated, or however you say, my story where I earlier mentioned getting the $50 gift card to the bar and thinking that the next day I took out Eric McCabe. And so all these years later, I look at the act and I'm like, Eric wasn't there the year I won. As a matter of fact, the year he won, I got 13th or something. He's killed me. So he wasn't there the year that I thought I actually had done well with the after having drank way too much night before with Matt. But yeah, the playing Graceland and seeing you guys there, and I have to say right away, before I met you, Mace, Paul was the first tour player I'd ever met. He was the guy doing it right, selling discs, selling t-shirts. He was out on the road. He was actually like a name, an advanced player name. He was actually a touring advanced player with his name out there. And I saw him one day while I was going to college. I actually quit disc golf for you. I was playing with my dad, playing traditional golf. I sold my car, about a set of clubs. I wanted to play traditional golf, and disc golf was fun, but it didn't click. It clicked, but it didn't I don't know what, it didn't like hit me, like it wasn't there yet. And then I saw Paul and traveling amateur, bought a shirt, bought a disc, ended up staying at your house in 2006 while on tour myself. Amazing at the Vinyl Factory. First time I got to play a tournament where you putt out of the water.
We're gonna get
I
to
made
that.
a putt out
Yeah,
of
we
the
are. We talked
canal.
about this already today too.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
definitely
Threw it in
part
the
of
canal. I made a 35 footer. I was right up against the wall. I had to putt left-handed and put it up over the wall, and I can't really pitch over it right-handed, so I spun it in there and made it. I think Avery might have taken that one down though. Oh, you know what? I love, good story about that tournament is Elaine King came over her knowledge, and she said all the locals play this hole through that gap and it won't feel good till it gets there. And she said, but just rip that mid-range. She said, just rip your rock through the window and let it go left or right. I parked the hole, won like $700.
It won't feel good until it
It
gets
won't
there.
feel good.
That's like
until it gets-
that's gonna be like when we get Elaine on here, that's gonna be one of the quotes I pull up on her and go, do you remember
you know
saying
what?
this? It won't
That
feel
I-
good until it gets there. And let's see what
Yeah,
she
and
says.
I might
'cause-
be paraphrasing her comment, but she'll tell you. She knows exactly.
yeah, but she'll know. She's smart enough to know that
She does.
where we're going with that too. So as a result of the illustrious feat of the 100 Club, you were inducted into the Illinois Hall of Champions. You are also a member of the Iowa
no.
Disc Golf Hall of Fame, and
I'm in the Hall of Champions.
that's what it says here.
The Illinois
think
Hall
so.
of Champions.
No, they have a Hall of Fame for the Illinois.
Well, maybe that's what it is then.
I
Oh, I'm
I
an
thought-
Illinois state champion now.
yeah, I think they call it.
I
the
won
Hall-
an Illinois state championship this year for the first time, but I am a 4-time inductee into the Illinois Disc Golf Hall of Fame.
4-time. Okay.
Four
I got-
times.
Nice.
Well, here in my
Isn't
defense,
one enough?
no, I don't. I think they don't kick me off the ballot just yet because everybody who got inducted, I would have voted for myself. Every single one. Barrett, White, Nate Heinold.
Of course.
How could you? I mean, Nate's young, but good
And wait, who
Lord,
is it?
okay.
Who else was on that list though? There was somebody else besides Barrett that I was on that list, and I was like, of course, again.
You put me on the spot. Mike Caprica, on Barrett's year. Ali. Put me on the spot.
Well, I remember hearing that roster, and it was like I was like, of course, and then another, of course, but I can't remember who the other, of course, was for.
Every one of them I would have voted for.
Maybe it
But
was for Alex
right now-
Beeman. Is it possible that Alex was on the same?
No, it's not Alex. I should have been better prepared.
That's all right, dude. Don't
But if you
sweat it.
show me the list right now, I'd vote for everyone.
Well, so the last thing I'm going to say on your framework was your global masters ranking is number 48.
I had a couple good rounds at the Solinsky this year back in Eugene.
Sorry, just an update. They've updated that on the PDJ. It's now 52.
Oh,
Sorry. Hate to do
52.
it, bad
damn
news.
it. Everybody wants to take a shot at
Three.
Sprague. What's up with that?
I know, right? Nobody can
Well, if you
downgrade.
look at that list, it's a lot of really good players.
Yeah. Well,
For sure.
You're a really good player. And let's start where we usually start, right at the beginning, at the origin story. First of all, just want to say we're all kind of the very, very close in age to each other. So we're all children of the early Gen X generation, video classic arcade games and Saturday morning cartoons, and Frisbee was just in the zeitgeist. It was just there in the world. You couldn't not grow up not knowing what a Frisbee was. And a lot of people played their own little games. How many times have you heard around when you tell people about what disc golf is, they go, "Oh, I thought I invented that with my friends, at the cottage or the camp or whatever." So
Guys'
what's
neighborhood with the master Frisbee.
what's your origin story? How did you get into? How did you hear about disc golf first of all?
Okay, so nobody's told me they've invented this game yet, but apparently it's just guts. When we were kids, we were playing Frisbee, and my brothers and everybody was older than me, 3.5 years, 4 years older than me.
Yeah.
But we would take our Frisbees and we stand with our backs to each other, and Tron had just come out. So maybe
All right.
82, So we would stand with our backs to each other, and I had this chocolate whistler that smelled like chocolate. And it whistled when you
No
threw
way.
it, and it was heavy.
Hold on a
And
second. I'm not clear on this.
so it had little chunks in the side of it, in the rim, little pieces that made it whistle when it flew.
Right
But
on.
it also smelled like chocolate, and it was heavier.
Was there scratching going on in this? You know, like scratch and sniff?
Yeah, exactly. So we would stand with our backs to each other. We'd throw frisbees away. We'd run and get them, and then turn around and basically play guts. But if you got hit in the arm, you couldn't use that arm. If you got hit in the leg, you could not use that leg. But if you got hit in the body, you were out. And if you got hit in the face, which I was good at with that whistler, that chocolate whistler, how'd that taste? Chocolatey. I was
So you have 3 older
4
brothers?
years younger than them, and I'm just like smoking these guys with this frisbees. And they were like, well, we're done playing Tron. So we played that for like a week. And then they were like, no, we're gonna go back to football or whatever it is. We'd stomp your ass. So yeah. Boxing, whatever it was, my brother liked wrestling. So anyway, that got old, the frisbee game, but I loved it. So we kept playing. And then eventually one day a friend we were at Grandview Park before the course went in, and he had a hawk, Discraft hawk, and we started playing catch with it. Hole 6. Remember to this day, before the holes ever went in at Grandview, I remember playing catch with that hawk and just realizing like that's a flight I can fall in love with.
Wow.
And then I went to a course, my 3rd hole, I threw in from like 161 feet with my disc that I had to hard earn. So we went to Hy-Vee disc golf card shop where they sold discs, but it was closed for the day. But my friend was like, we're playing disc golf. We need this. And I saw what was happening. So I could feel that fever come over me, right? I saw what they were doing. I've already played with one. We have to do this. And the guy, the manager, I go, come on, open the shop. And he goes, if you can reach in there and get one, I'll bring it up. So I got my arm, I got long arms, monkey arms, got my arm in there as far as I could. And I found a 179 shark. And it was a hammer shark, the hammer. It was the hammer. And I looked at my buddy and goes, it's real heavy. He goes, that's good. That'll fly far. So that was my whole, that was it.
That was your introduction. That's your first one.
Oh,
Yep.
that's
3rd
awesome.
hole, threw it in, started salivating, the story we all have.
For the hammer, with the hammer, that was your first disc?
Yeah,
Wow.
still have it.
Nice.
They'll have it.
I'm
That's
afraid to throw it. It's so brittle. If I hit
Those were kind of rubbery too back then, though. They
Not
kind of
this
had a little
one.
shine
was
to
a
them, or
hard
no?
one. Oh, I had a hard one.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Some of
You
them
get
were
that.
grippy and some were hard, but I had one.
Right.
Of those.
I know. Right. Exactly.
Mine was ready to break the year I quit throwing. Like 3 years in, it was like one of those brittle hard ones. But
So-
I mean, I grew out of it. Grew into a rock probably.
So let me ask you a question. You're from Des Moines. Now, when growing up in Toronto, I had no idea at the time that when Toronto hosted the Worlds. I only wish I had have known about it. Obviously, you were 14, I think, when the Worlds came to Iowa.
No,
Did you the first time
2004?
in 89?
Oh, in 89 when it came to Waterloo.
Yeah. Now it's not
Oh,
obviously not
yeah.
Des Moines, but did
Steve
you-
Weiss kept one.
was it in the consciousness, like when you started, you had no idea? Do you wish you had have known, like if there had been
Absolutely.
some kind of- yeah.
No, I David Wiggins, I watched his interview with guys and I was like thinking like, good or bad, he still enjoys the game. It would have been good,
Yeah.
Like Simon playing. I'm like, it's hard, right? To be around it all the time. And like my son's around it and his mom's an amateur champion, dad's a champion. It's kind of old hat. So it's not exciting. So it's a little weird. Like, would it still be exciting to me? So I don't try to second guess those things, but yeah.
Yeah.
Part of me thinks it would be neat, but what if it went the other way and it burned out and I didn't actually enjoy it? Maybe I wouldn't be where I'm at today. Maybe I would be further. It's hard to ask those kind of questions of yourself because it's the butterfly effect, right?
So
What if
does
I
your
didn't
son play at all?
He does. He can rip. He's good. He just needs to play against people that aren't champions. Like go play with a round with mom and dad, and we both rip and putt. It's just hard to realize, like, oh, when I play with kids my own age, I'm actually really good. but he's never had that experience that much. And he does other things. He's playing tennis. He's like a little Schweberger out there, just smashing tennis shots. His coach
Nice, nice.
ball. I'm pretty much encourage him to do whatever he wants, but I want him to develop the muscles for disc golf and enjoy the game. He went and played doubles with his mom the other day. Amazing. Got out there and played a little doubles tournament with her. I think he'll do fine if he just finds the game and enjoys it the way I enjoy it. That's all I can ask. If he goes out there and loves the people the way I love the people, you know, gets to meet friends all around the world, gets to open doors, travel, go to Toronto, go to the
And
final
Japan.
factory.
Yeah.
Yeah, without a doubt.
That's one of my
Yeah, well,
most
it's-
you have a bubble hockey table in your house. I mean, that is like that you want to talk about spectacular moments on tour. I grew up with the bubble hockey like as my like number one favorite thing on earth. And when I walked in your living room or whatever
just
that was,
My DJ studio.
Yeah, it
your
was in the studio. It was the doghouse. You found that in the
That was-
doghouse.
absolutely incredible.
We had the two tables set up side by side. We used to do a league. Yeah.
I missed the good times. I only got to enjoy the really good times.
Yeah, there's when we got during the lockout, the NHL lockout, winter of 04, 05, we had nothing else to do. We're like long winter nights, and you're drinking a lot of beer.
Do people know what bubble hockey is? Is that just like me, or can we describe that a little better?
I don't. It's
Dome hockey.
we call it rod hockey too. It's just like
Yeah, the controller, the dome.
kind of like foosball, but with hockey instead. But you know what was crazy was we would have the two tables side by side, and we got so practiced with the art of flicking the puck into a certain corner and having it bounce into the other rink. And so if we had league nights going on where like two people, two games are going at the same time, and if you and I are playing and the other team is playing on the other side and their puck goes into our rink, it's now two puck live. But for that like little
How do they get in the
derby
dome?
time. No, it wasn't covered. They were open.
Oh, you didn't have the covers.
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
you wear mouth guards?
Eventually.
The injuries were minimal but continuous. Yes, that's true. Oh yeah.
So I've
Okay,
stayed with
so-
both of you before. Yeah.
See, this
It's
is
true.
what's awesome about
Oh,
Here,
Mace,
I'll
you've stayed with me
swear.
before. You've stayed with me before, Mace.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. And I've stayed with you in
Absolutely.
other people's homes before too. Yeah, we've done some couch surfing. There's no question about that.
It's my favorite part.
So we're gonna pick up the thread here. You basically fall in love with the game, throwing a hawk, and you go to great lengths to get a disc on the day that you're gonna play, and we know that you're already hooked. What was it like? Was this the year of your first tournament? Was this 1997 that you were
Yeah.
figuring this out, and then you played the Des Moines Open?
Yeah.
That
Got
year.
30, you got last place or something in
Well,
intermediate.
You got 28th out of 39, and so it's not last
Not
place.
too bad.
Not too bad. But what was that like? Like you say, you stepped away for a little while, but did you enjoy your first experience? Do you have any memories or stories
I
from
loved it. I absolutely loved it. The only thing that made me step away was just that I was so enthralled with traditional golf.
Yeah.
I was literally selling cars for clubs. I mean, I was absolutely thought I was a smashing good player, and turns out I could shoot 80. So I could shoot 80.
It's better
That's
than I can do.
I mean, it felt great, but it wasn't even all the time. And I probably took 2 mulligans and 9 based on my dad's rules. I mean, it wasn't real 80s. I mean, like when I got into disc golf, I quit cheating in traditional golf, which is kind of neat.
No more foot wedge, huh?
Nope.
Well, one of the
Yeah, and then that shot my score up to 89. So here we
I
are.
imagine you can't swing both ways on the golf course like you can throw with both hands on the disc golf course.
No, but I grew up left-handed, so there was a point in my career where I just realized that I'm really fighting myself because I'm also not a right-handed sidearm. So it put me in a pickle when I only had a left-handed sidearm.
Wow.
So you kind of have to make do. And then suddenly I had 5 left-handed aces, 2 over 300, and a couple of one in the A tier and one warming up for an A tier. But solid golf, you know, like the other day I threw OB on a left or right backhand right-handed shot, and I was so mad at myself for not throwing left-handed. And the next round I threw left-handed and parked the hole and birdied it. And I was like, why would you bring into all these stupid elements into play? And part of me is just, the hardest part for me is just to realize you're ambidextrous. It's okay to be different. And it weirds out my competition sometimes where I putt. Some rounds I'll putt left-handed the entire round, you know, because most of my shots are leaving me inside 25. So I'm putting left-handed the entire round. The next round, I'm always outside 25 because, of course, a little tougher or something. We're not getting up and down as easy. I'm putting right-handed the entire round. It's a weird thing, but they all go in. I mean, 990 rated, so they're not all going in. I can do better, but I'm making a lot of putts, and it's not a bad thing. I mean, that I'm doing both because the wind gets a certain way, and I can keep it on top of it. Sometimes my left hand's a lot more confident to make a cheeky run at a long putt, where my right hand can be a little bit aggressive and powerful and roll away. I can feel these old bogeys coming on, and I'll just pitch it up there left-handed. And sometimes I go in, sometimes I don't, but I don't bogey like those old days. So it's great. So it's just getting out of my own way and let myself be ambidextrous.
When did you start feeling comfortable with that? I mean, how much time have you and how much time have you put in on putting left-handed,
So
practice wise?
When I won the 05 KC Wide Open by 6 strokes over Climo, the only picture of me in the newspaper is a tap in left-handed. So if you look at geologic time in the fossil record, I've clearly been doing it since 04 or 05. You know what I'm saying? It's been happening for a while. So
right, but yeah, and I mean, I remember seeing you throw shots both ways and throwing both hands at the same time, and a variety of different things like that. But there's a difference between doing it and like feeling just as steady and comfortable inside of 25 with your left hand as you do with your right hand. So when did that? I guess I didn't word that but well enough. But
so
when
if
did you
think
start
of it,
coming to
if
that?
you think about it, if you think about it in terms of wiring, my left hand is a spin putt, and it stays chain high the entire time, and it just unfolds into the basket. And from 25 and in, all I have to do is flex my fingers into the chains and it goes in, right? When I'm pitching a disc, I have to right-handed, I'm dropping below and coming back up. So I drop below chain high and then I come back. And so if at any point I glitch, I can leave it right in the side of the cage. And so at short
push putt, that's the push putt, right?
Yeah, the pitch putt and whatever that kind of leaves you into that little
no spin, Climo putt.
Climo putt. Whereas I'm a Nate Doss, Matt Oram spin putter from short range, which is brilliant because it doesn't leave chain high. It's always chain high the entire time. All I do is not pull it right or left, and that's all about good smooth hands. Both are about clean hands. For me, the right hand's powerful. It's good at long range. Left hand's a nice soft spin. I can read the label. It spins in there. It gets me into there's times where I'll pitch right-handed in and it'll barely go in. I'm like, oh, why did I do that? And I'll pitch left-handed and it's confident the entire way. Even if I miss it, it's confident. So my problem is I try to like figure out where that 25-foot range is, and I try to keep a little bit of that right hand moving during the rounds. That's the hard part. It's like if you're putting left hand the whole time, and then you suddenly have a right-handed putt, is it warmed up? If you're putting right-handed the whole time, if you're left-handed. So in practice, I just try to kind of clean it up both hands all the way out, cleaned up both hands so that anytime I'm putting, I'm just thinking about pure confidence. What's the most confident way I can stroke this putt? And it's funny because I would love to be a spin putter right-handed because of how smooth I can control that RPM, but I can't pitch putt left-handed. I can't spin putt right-handed. So when I coach putting, I don't teach spin pitch. I teach what's your wiring. How are you wired? We're all wired differently. And so if I can't teach something with my left hand, or I can't teach it with my right hand equally both ways, offhanded, I don't teach that as a mechanism. I'll teach spin putt in context of what I do left-handed. I'll teach pitch putt in context of what I do right-handed, but I won't force people to adopt one way or the other. I try to find what they do.
Well, and I think that's the key to the game anyway, is just figuring out what's right for you, because I mean, there's lots of things that all three of us aren't going to agree on. And I'm sure there's lots of things that we will as well. I mean, in terms of what's right for us in our game, you know, and what needs to go in our bag and what doesn't, you know, and that kind of thing. So that's totally understandable.
To answer your question, which that was not an answer, 04 at least.
There you go.
Oh, for at least.
That's the worst, longest answer ever.
That was
I
a-
don't
that was
really know.
that was a geological answer right there. Nice and
Yeah, we
slow
only
and
know for sure based on the fossil record.
percolating with many layers. I loved it.
So your first win came in 99 as an AM2. You won the Edgewood Labor Day Classic. Out of 17 people, you came in first. You also took second in your
No.
final M1 tournament. Was it the
He-
Ottumwa Fall Classic?
He won
beat-
that.
He won it.
Advanced tournament, first big win.
Oh, the second. I see it. I see it. I see it. Overlooked that. Sorry. I'm not a very good reader. And then
So-
let's see, noted that you win the FA1 in Des Moines and or that Des and Jay. Oh wait, I see. I'm sorry, I'm mixing this all up. Des won FA1 and Jay won AM2 when you won at Ottumwa as well. So that's pretty interesting that obviously your guys' careers overlapped quite a
Yeah,
bit.
as a matter of fact, if you take a moment, we turned pro within 3 weeks of each other, Jay and I.
Wow.
And if you look at our careers all throughout, we played. He's actually the player. He made me the player I am today. I give him credit for this 100%. There's so many players I can attribute to my skills and the things I learned and what I tried to do. He's the one who made me scared and went home to fix shit. We were playing the worst shot section of San Saba, 03, national doubles. And I said, I've been working on this overhand shot with this tailwind. I didn't say the tailwind, but Jay knew there was a tailwind. And he said, no, just throw it straight 100 feet under these trees, because that's the smart thing to do. And I go, no, I've been working on it, and I'm not thinking about worse shots. So I throw it like 200 feet away from the basket, like 100 feet further than we already are. And the look he kind of gave me, Jay's a sweet guy, but there's a certain look that you give your teammates in football when they drop the ball or just miss a block or do something like run off the field for no apparent reason. Like, I think I ran off the field for no apparent reason at that moment. And so Jay looked at me and I felt like a kind of like shaking my soul. I still think about it. Like, I've never seen him look at me quite like that. And I went home, and instead of jump putting from 100 feet away, I just sat and threw backhands from 30. And then I threw a backhand from 35 until all of them went in. I just started throwing backhands from 40, 50, 60. I quit jump putting for an entire month. Just threw backhands at practice until I was like the best backhand thrower I've ever met, because I don't have a sidearm, and or at least the sidearm you do right-handed. So I had to throw left or right shots. And that's actually what got me on Team Innova, because I went and played with Sam Ferens at the KC Wide Open in 03 that same year. Flash forward 3 months, threw every one of my AVRs under the basket. All I had to do was tap them in that round. It's probably a 980 round for all I know, but it felt like I shined that day in front of Sam, and he saw my putter game and he invited me on the team, and been on the team since 03.
Nice.
So and it's because Jay wanted to break me in 2, 3, 4 pieces for being the most ridiculously dumb player he's ever met. But I learned, that's everybody's swords in the fire. You learn from it or you don't.
So, but it's fascinating, the ties between you and Jay, obviously both from Iowa, and the phenomenal trajectory of your growth from, like I say, from pure recreational to pure professional. Both of you, we're talking 4 years later, you guys are playing at the top level pro after he wins the M2 and you won the M1. I mean, that's significant rapid development. And you guys, you must have been all up in each other's grills in the years before that, like living in Iowa. And I know they moved to Texas soon after that, but even into
they had a little slower trajectory. But when his hit, if you actually look at his career stats, he's the most, like, maybe, I mean, he has like in majors overall, the amount of money he's made, the amount of his quality of wins, high level finishes, everything. If you look at Jay's career, it's Hall of Fame work. Absolutely Hall of Fame work. It's like insane. You just cannot.
Oh, and it goes on and on forever too. I mean,
like I do data, so I pulled it all together and I had to compare the two of us, and I was like, wow, Jay. Impressive it's impressive in charts, but yeah, no, we push each other, and like I said, he made me the player I am, and we've been doing this since we were just kids. Feels like
at that tournament at Tumwa, were you aware of each other at that time?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, well, Jay's just
like the two tallest guys in the event, probably, or two of the tallest guys in the event at least.
Yeah. But I don't think we were aware of where the direction we were going. I think we were just a couple of, everybody was just passionate about the game. It was just fresh, at the time. We weren't really thinking about where it was going. We didn't know yet he was going to be 5-time world putting champion with the AVR, Dez is going to be 5-time world champ. Well, we knew in 2000, but we didn't know then, right? Like we knew Dez was on her way, but
sure.
Jay and I were a little bit of a mystery waiting to happen. So it's pretty impressive, though, to a lot of the guys from Iowa. When you look at Adam Olson's career, Tannen Duncan's career, you look at what Ben Calloway's doing, you look at what Gannon Burr is doing now, and you look at what Gavin Babcock, and there's other guys that are sleeping right now in Iowa that aren't even out there. Josiah Pope, Matt Polson. There's guys sleeping in Iowa right now that are about to pop. You got Dawson Snelling. This is kind of the passionate thing for me, is all these kids I've been spanking around a little all these years. It's nice to see them really clicking and finding their own game and like really loving it like they do. I didn't smack Gannon around ever. I just knew he was going to smack me around someday, and took a lot of pictures with him.
So you don't have a baby scalp with Gannon then?
No, I mean, I probably do. Do you know baby scalps? Wow.
I listened to your podcast with the Unstable Discourse guys.
Oh man, I probably do. I'd have to ask Gannon. I have to look.
Well, you're a stats guy. You pull out the stats. There's some homework.
I don't really look at Gannon that way. It's more like I'm not looking at Gannon that way. I've always looked at that differently. Like Ben and I competed a little locally, for years and stuff. And I watched him blossom into a player he is, and like I knew he was going places. But Gannon was kind of over there in Des Moines doing his thing. And Justin McClune was telling me, oh, he's your next world champion. I'm like, really? Because we had a couple of kids, over there doing really well. And so I thought, Gannon's going to be our next world champion. You're saying that when he's 15. This is pretty incredible stuff.
Well, he's got the USDGC out of the way, so.
Champion, that's true.
I don't see it not being in his resume someday. I mean,
he's definitely on a heater. All right, so since we're talking about that and it's next week, who are you picking?
I'm gonna go with Gannon yeah, I mean, just that's a fanboy favorite for me. I'm like hard not to pick him. Watch what
with the performance in the last 6 to 12 months, it's pretty hard to not pick him. I think
it's hard not to pick Calvin either, because
that's who I'm going to go with.
Well, Calvin's due for his moment, because he's just.
I think he's a little overdue, actually.
He's way overdue, and he keeps getting these commentator curses. No offense to the guys; they do a great job. But every once in a while, you see a guy shooting a hot round, course record. I'm not saying that as any mean. It's like nice in somebody's shot, but I think he's due for that moment where he just pops. I took him rock hounding. He's a quiet, peaceful soul. I think he's going to find that calm one of these times, and it's just going to be hard to beat. You're not going to be able to top it.
Well, he's definitely super consistent. I mean, it's, like I was talking about with somebody yesterday or the day before, and they're like, well, how is he ranked number one? And I said, well, like, he's not outside the top 5 pretty much ever. I mean, if he's not on the lead card, he's on the second card, he's on the chase, he's creating the chase, he's involved in all that. And so I don't know. Who do you think, B? What are you thinking? You paying any attention at all?
Hell no. I'm telling stories from the old days. I don't know who's playing. I mean, I hear this guy Gannon Burr, and sometimes I get this confused with Missy Gannon, and it just really throws me off. So I don't.
No.
I know we're living in a they them universe, so I don't ask questions much anymore. I just sit.
You want to
and-
talk about old days and tie some of your podcasts together? Dave Wiggins was talking about Christian Sandstrom, and you were talking about the '04 Worlds and what a wonderful experience. And I got to take Christian out to Pickard and play Pickard with him for the first time. He threw hole one in the short pin. It's not what it is now, but he threw it with a whippet, which is like 350, but he took it out around all the trees. My whippet would have been 100 short of that, and I'm a whippet thrower. Most people aren't throwing that spike hyzer with anything like that. And it was just eye-opening to see that kind of power. And then he taught me the guidus catch, which I've loved to do ever since. He also taught me that they don't have thunderstorms in Sweden. So when lightning struck out at Camden, I found out he was the fastest human on earth. Do you know he does like a 300-foot throw run catch? He can throw a disc and catch it 300 feet away from him. That's the world record.
That's
Wow.
incredible.
About him. It's an insane, and he's faster than any human I've ever seen. Well,
Jeez.
maybe a couple track guys, but this guy, Christian, you can see why David Wiggins watched him play,
Yeah.
throw. It's like, oh, that's it. There's economy of motion there. And that's when you watch David throw, it's economy of motion. And he
Yeah,
broke all those muscles on a young chassis. He broke all those muscles around disco.
Well, that's what's cool about growing up disc golf is your frame grows up around it,
Simon too.
Yeah.
I used to think Matt Fausch was as good as Climo because he used to putt from his hip with Firebirds and X clones and just bang from 60 and 70 and just everything because he was generating power like a kid. And kids, when they generate power, they have to do it a different way. Well, when they grow up, they don't unlearn that way to generate power. They just incorporate it. That's why you see a guy like Greg Barsby dropping 150-foot jump putts because he grew up dropping big power out of a small chassis.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
he didn't forget how to do that. He just put it into a bigger chassis. And he's got good hands. So he's going to drop them bombs and become world champ. That's brilliant.
There you go. That's perfect. So let's take a break here and go back to 2000. You go and play your first AM Worlds in Michigan. How was that experience? I mean, you knew you were kind of playing out the chain as an M1 player, and you kind of did you feel like you maybe had a chance?
I did until we woke up late and showed up on hole 3 of our first round. So if you know about Michigan AM Worlds or Pro Worlds, is that there was a stationary front where the storm kept rotating over Lake Michigan and just dumping the same 4 inches of rain every day over the courses.
Was
And
it
so-
Grand Rapids?
And our
2000 Worlds.
so we had
Oh,
casual
okay.
water, yeah. And weekend, we woke up late for our first round, not on purpose, but we didn't realize Detroit traffic was like. So we gave what a good Iowa kid would give, like a good hour drive. We gave it a nice hour and a half. And it turned out we needed all 2 hours of it, and we ended up showing up late, and it was torrential downpour, and it could have been worse. We were in 280th place after the first round. Could have been in last place, but we were in third to last. So,
But you clawed up to 36. That's pretty good steep climb out of there.
yeah. And we actually started the second round, birdie, the final round, semifinals. And then it turned out that the campground course had a horn blow for start, and we started the round. And then they blew our start horn after I birdied the first 3 holes. And so we did the right thing. We were like, oh, well, that was just warm up. So we went back to tee and played the holes. And of course, it was like par, bogey or something weird. Like it wasn't what it was. I might have got 1 birdie out of it, but it was such a, So AM Worlds is more of a sword in the fire experience. I always tell people, no matter what happens to you, if you're in playoffs, you lose, things go wrong. Any of those moments where your eyes are bulging out of your head, you're feeling sweaty, things are not comfortable, that's sword in the fire. That's your opportunity to hone your blade, to learn from the experience. That's the key to the moment. Good or bad, you don't have to win in those moments. You just have to know that it's the opportunity is present to learn from it and to hone your blade. And if you look at it like a loss and you do the defeatist thing, you're going to end up with a deficit.
That's a great way of looking at you.
Which also gets me back to the point of, yeah, go ahead. I was gonna say, when you think about the sports psychology of a lot of our training, we don't realize 10% gains, but in psychology, they say if you don't notice a 10% variance that you can't. So we don't generally realize gains in our practice over 10%. And so a lot of people will practice, not realize their 4% gain was a gain because their perception was off. Not understanding that perception is a difficult thing and therefore trusting in the process. And then they end up with a deficit because they beat themselves down mentally and verbally. And so I started rewriting the things that I said to myself. If I were to say, you're an idiot, monkey grip, whatever these words that I like, whatever words I would phrase, I would end up isolating them and saying, well, how many of those phrases are the same comment? Most of them were the same comment. You're really not an idiot, and you're really not dumb, and you're really not, those are the same comment. You're really frustrated. So what's the rephrase? I end up rephrasing it into some new word, new catchphrase. One of my favorite is, it'll look closer when you get there. You threw a shot, it was a little off. It feels a long ways from when you're looking at it from where your shot was thrown, and it wasn't perfect, but you know in your mind when you step behind it that it'll look closer when you get there. So defusing a lot of those things, realizing that your gains are less than 10%. A lot of those things at AM Worlds, the deficits, the missing the tee time, the moments, all of those moments led up, you know. So I always look at AM Worlds as the start, the catalyst for all of my future experiences, all of my nightmares about, oh my God, where are my shoes? I'm not wearing pants. I missed my tee time. I found my tee time. Now my card left. Where's my card? You know, all those dreams you have. Barry Schultz is on my tee. You know, we all have those anxiety dreams, but having those moments in a real tournament and realizing that those things can happen, and then, you know, preparing for the future, you know, probably like some of the catalysts for my success.
Well, I mean, you went right back to it. You played the Call to Arms in Omaha. You win as an M1 as your final ever tournament as an amateur. And then you almost win the Des Moines Open. But you have a similar sword in the fire story with that, with Jeff Harper, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my first tournament win.
Whole life.
My first opportunity to win, he looks at me on the last hole and goes, well, I don't usually talk about the score, but we're tied. And then
nice.
I had a little sidearm, which if you know about me, I throw in these little sidearm shots. But back in the day, I do a finger out and a stall kind of sidearm. It's almost a knuckleball, so it has a low RPM. Well, in this tournament, I had 2 fingers in. I put a little zip on it, and it chained out. It had too much power. One of the other reasons I became the player I am, because Jeff, you know, he knew how to play, and he knows how to win, and he's a great player, and he saw where I was going. Some of the best advice I ever got was like, if somebody's working you and coming after you hard, it's because you got a target on your chest because they're scared of you. You know, and it wasn't Jeff doing it. Jeff was never that way, but he was the one giving me that kind of advice and pumping me up and making sure that I knew that people are going to be coming after me, and I'm going to be a target in the future. And yeah, he pretty much toughened me up early.
Well,
Jeff's awesome.
It wasn't too long after that, right, Mace? What's the next thing?
Well, you went to the 16th Blackhawk Metro Open in Waterloo, Iowa, and you beat 16 people. Excuse me, you beat 15 people and took first for $206 to get your first win in 2000.
Was that the last tournament that season?
It was, that might have been in September.
Okay. But how did that feel?
That was like 8,800 days ago. I don't know.
Oh my God. Okay.
Is that accurate?
Is that a good enough answer?
That's a great
That's a little
answer.
deep. I know how many days ago about it was, approximately. No, it was a great feeling, and I still think about it. I thought Stokely posted the other day about how his margin from his first to his most recent MPO win, and I took it to heart. I won an MPO tournament last weekend, and I had to do a little math. So yeah, it's
and
kind of.
So what was the difference?
I'm
And his
around
number and your number.
8,800. Oh, he's like 35,000 or something. I don't know. He's like 90, isn't he? Something like that now.
90. Yeah,
He's
he's
like
52,
62
I
or
think.
something.
I think he's 55.
Yeah, but his number would lead you to believe it's like he's much older. His number is like, let's see, I'm 8,800. He's like 35,000, I want to say.
I think you're in the I think you're in the
I
neighborhood.
think
It
I'm in
might-
the ballpark. I think it's so ridiculous that I don't even know if I can. I think I'd have to. I don't think I have enough time on the
What
clock.
was it? I might have a script laying around here in this pile somewhere from a
I'm
couple
pretty
weeks
sure he was
ago.
like 14 or 13, maybe when he won his first, maybe younger, 11. And so his spread is huge. And he just won when he was 50. So it's like 3 times mine. It's incredible.
Well, yeah, I mean, when you've been playing that long and especially that close to the heartland of it, you can. Here, I'm just pulling up his stats here. He's the Global Masters Series rank #1.
And he's number 3 in MP40.
So his first win came in October 1992.
No. See, they're not.
That's the PDJ, well, according to the PDJ.
Yeah. I don't know if that's what he counted. It might be. He might be doing it off pure math. I think they're missing some tournaments, and that his actual number is. I think he played a sanctioned event that's not posted.
Well, there's an 8-year gap between the Huntington Beach Open that he won as a junior boys and the 92.
Oh, it might be the right one then. It could still be the math. You just have to do the math.
I was never very good at math, so I'll just leave that for the
No, there's an app. I just when I say do the math, I mean Google search date diff. You guys know I'm a data analyst, and I Google search date diff maps.
Okay. All right. Well, I tell you, it's pretty amazing to think how technology has impacted disc golf. One of the things that we're going to talk, maybe briefly touch on, was you'd already talked about it in that Unstable Discourse, which was a great show, by the way. If anybody's out there, they should support those guys. But talking about touring before Google Maps, in the same way, playing the golf discs or coming across new golf discs that doesn't have the numbers, like knowing disc golf before the numbers were on the discs, we just kind of had to experiment with it. Now people can look, speed 14. Yeah, I want that one. We'd have to look at the rim if you were a little more engineering minded or scientific, or God forbid, you have to talk to the pro selling you the disc.
No, for me it was Mace Man showing up at the course. Should I turn on my light? Like we got a little dark.
That works out. That's a good idea. There you go.
There you go.
You do tend to disappear in the dark this time of year after sunset.
I don't know if we got better lighting, but no, funny story is Mace Man one time showed up selling Gateway discs, and the Saber had come out. It was like 2001 maybe, and they still had grease on the bottom, like somebody spilled something on it. And I wiped it off, and I parked hole 7, which was used to be hole 1 at Walnut Ridge. It's like 540 downhill. I don't get near it today. I lay up all, you know what I mean? But at that day, yeah. And so Mace Man was actually one of the guys who would come through town and was kind of we relied on like getting that fresh plastic, and he would always bring in Nolan at the time. He brought me in as a pro, but Stokely would come into town. Ron Russell would do clinics. So kind of that was our YouTube at the time. We waited for those hot shots and cool shots to come out, but really we relied on those demos and those guys traveling through town. And Mace, you did so many clinics for us, over the years.
Man, well, and you guys had Becky Z, so I mean, it was like there was not a shy bone in her body, and getting people out. Like I always had better events in Des Moines than anywhere else because of Becky Z. 100% because of Becky Z.
She convinced me to do stuff. I'd be like, well, I have plans tonight for some reason.
Yeah, I've told this story a bunch of times on here already too, but I'll never forget the time when Nolan and I came through, and I think we had a Mace Man doubles in the morning. I think we had like a Saturday and a Sunday deal where we had like Mace Man doubles on Saturday morning, and then she spent the rest of the day showing Nolan and I around town, like the tournament hotel, the second tournament hotel, all these different courses. and just talked about like, man, I don't think that some people worked as hard on their entire event as Becky did preliminarily and like showing us what she was going to do. And then she said, "Do you think we'll get it?" And I was like, "Are you kidding, Becky? Nobody wants to run. Nobody wants to run pro worlds, let alone pro and am worlds at the same time. Of course you're going to get it. Nobody's worked this hard on the whole entire event as you have on the preliminary. Of course you're going to get it." And of course she did.
She had the DVD proposal, which is all like videos, and you know, at the time that was way beyond, like she had
Front
a
edge,
media
cutting edge.
presentation. So yeah, no, absolutely amazing. And most people don't spend that much time on planning their lives. Be fair.
That, I mean, hey, that's a good point. That's a really good point. Yeah, I got really lucky and ran into her when she was doing her bucket list farewell tour in St. Louis at a Michael Fronte Spearhead show. And it was one of the coolest things I've ever experienced.
Oh man. I just had a dream about Kuzi last night, which is wild.
Yeah, I haven't seen him since she passed, but I'm looking forward to it for sure.
Anytime I have a dream about somebody, I have to reach out to him. So he's on my list.
Nice. Well, it'd be good to see Kuzi again for sure.
He's the guy who got me going, man. Him and Jeff Homburg. Jeff was the first one who said, Jeff Homburg, the Hall of Famer, technical specs, master frisbee guru, was getting his PhD. Oh, did I lose you guys?
No.
Getting his PhD in Iowa when I started playing, and Kuzi was playing all the time. And Kuzi would have me out playing 50 cents, high stake, or whatever you called it, glow doubles or skins in the dark, you know, where he'd always hustle me for some money. And I remember them, they used to call me easy money because I was just game for the, you know, I didn't mind losing to these good players because felt like it was kind of a apprenticeship.
That's
I
awesome.
looked at it like an honor I didn't like it at the time probably so much, but when you watch Jeff Homburg drop 11 downs at Grandview before all the 100 trees fell in the derecho, and you realize it took so many years for anybody to even come close to shooting those kind of scores. He was doing special things, and I didn't have any concept of how good he was, you know. And then Kuzi too was, you know, he wasn't the level of player that Jeff Homburg was, but that mindset and that gamer attitude and the fun stuff. You ever know, like talking about Graceland, one time Kuzi couldn't smoke on the property, so one time he goes off the property and he just birdied 2 or 3 holes in a row, and he comes back and I go, "Dude, you're on fire." And he goes, "I know." And he like does this little like cocky little Kuzi move, and smoke starts like rolling up his face, and his whole fleece is like literally on fire because he went over and smoked and put his cigarette out in his fleece. And to this day, I'm like, I don't think I could have planned that. Like, I didn't even think about what I was saying. I'm like, "You're on fire." And he's like, "I know." Like, I was just in shock. I've never seen anybody like literally on fire. So
that's hilarious.
So Kuzi and I, we go way back.
Nice.
That's cool, man.
Kuzi and Becky were the two. Well, Becky I met in Veterans Park, but when I was driving through Iowa my first time in '96, Kuzi was the first guy I met at the league night. And
oh, you made it to Des Moines before?
Yeah. That was actually, Iowa was pretty deep and close to my heart because as an AM2, I remember playing the Turkey Shoot Open. There were 2 tournaments in Iowa that I played on back-to-back weekends, and just
Iowa City.
I was just having a great time just traveling. In fact, the first ever ace I got was, I think it was at Black Hawk. I can't remember the hole now, but yeah.
I met you at Margot Franklin.
That's it.
I was driving from DMAC, where they hosted the Worlds in 2004 for the finals. And I was heading home from college, and I saw a car on the side of the road with Canada plates. He had the sticker, the Toronto Island, I think, sticker or something in the window, and the tide and everything. And I ended up hitting you. I was like, "Oh, I gotta know what's going on here." That was fresh and new. Nowadays, you might just keep driving, like, "Oh, that's cool. Some people from out of town."
Right.
But back then, that was a big deal, you know. So I pulled over, and probably like took over your day.
I think I
Probably like
remember that.
stole around from you.
That was a wooded course, wasn't it? Like
Yeah,
really
very
kind of
wooded.
tight and kind of up and down. I
Yeah,
remember that. That's right.
little mini wooded.
I was just all
Sierra
of a
Club
sudden
was big there, bird hunting.
there
Bird,
I am on my own playing. I think it was the cold. I feel like that was like November-ish or something.
it
And
was
you said it was
school
during
time,
school, so
probably
yeah.
October at least. You're probably at the end of your tour.
I
I
don't
bought a
know.
gazelle off you, a red gazelle with the Toronto Island stamp on it. I still own it. Love it. Won't let
That's
me
so
touch
cool. Now you have done I mean, we're talking about us being the tours, but you got on absolute fire yourself, especially in the 2000s. I mean, I counted it up. You played 279 events, 270 of which were pro, average 27 a year. Your big years were 06 and 07 and 08, 40, 41 and 38 events. But we want to tee this up first. We want to take you to 2004. The world's come to Des Moines, your hometown. You're starting to feel your oats. You're starting to feel a good stride. Obviously, the team is so in place, and they ran such an amazing Worlds. It's such a great, as a logistical event, they did an incredible job with so many moving pieces. But I know you said before that you didn't feel any pressure, because that's always the question. How did you feel as the hometown boy? Was there expectations on you? But what did you feel as you're stepping into the golden glow, as it were?
My last Worlds was a 59th place, I think. So I really didn't have, I'd missed the Texas Worlds, I missed the Arizona Worlds, and then, they knocked this one out of the park. And I really didn't have any expectations except, it's hard to play at home sometimes. So I kind of had the expectation of it being tougher than usual, but we played some courses that we don't usually play. I don't play day to day, and I was kind of hitting a stride, and I played the courses well. And I actually played Pickard. I think shot a 50 at Pickard at the time. Was really, I think 49 ended up being the course record for several years. So it's huge. I feel like I could have done better, which is ironic, but I was not upset. I think I just struggled at the DMAC course, which I didn't recognize that course as anything we'd ever played. So it was new to me. That was the only one I really felt like I struggled on. So I guess sometimes it leaves you with that lingering feeling, and how you finish the tournament. Funny to and I only think about that last round sometimes, and then I realize, oh, 8th place, that's amazing. But you kind of like, it leaves you like, oh man, I watched Schwebby just demolish DMAC, and you watch those guys shred it, and it leaves you a little taste in your mouth. You want a little better. That's what drives you, right?
Yeah. And especially seeing these boys come from everywhere else in the United States, coming to your hometown and showing you how to do it, with the exception of your 50 there. But,
Oh, I was proud of it. I was proud of everything I did, for sure. And, I always honor my opponents, because, if you don't really respect your opponents, then what are you? You're just a little better than nothing. So I always, if I finish ahead of people, I just am like, wow, holy moly, I beat him. Oh my God, I cannot believe I finished ahead of them. That's just, that's what drives you forward, is like just respect for your opponents. And if they weren't there, what would it be? You in a park nowhere. So it's great.
Well, you also went to Japan.
Yeah.
How did that all happen? How did you approach that? Have you ever been outside of the United States before that?
No. Japan Open just had a majesty to it. The way the tournament was run, the respect and the honor, and all of the history and the heritage that they've built. Just a tournament, a bucket list, and I had an opportunity. So as in between jobs, I had an opportunity to go, pulled the trigger, took the risk. It's what I like to call a business trip, because I couldn't cover my expenses, but you can't put a price on those kind of experiences,
Yeah, I know. When I went in 13, I wasn't even paying attention to what I was spending. I mean, I wasn't going crazy, but I mean, like, I was like going, yeah, this is going to be like $3,500, $4,000 easy. Whatever.
Well, I was doing fine until I spent a week in Tokyo one night. So
Yeah.
That's well put on that one. Tokyo is a hell of a city. I went to Japan in '97 to visit a friend, and that's where I ended up meeting Sam Ferens. I played a
really,
tournament there, and I was just really impressed with. I was really impressed with the fact that alcohol, their approach to alcohol is much different than in North America. You could drink
when we
very, very
landed, we
well.
were very jet lagged, and Sam. Speaking of Sam, we had three. What are they? Giblets? Is that giblet? Am I saying that right? It's like the drink
Cocktails out
cocktail.
of, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Gimlet.
Gimlet. Sorry, I'm saying that wrong. So we had three gimlets at the LA airport before getting on the plane to go to Japan. And Sam said, "Hey, welcome to the team. It's been great having you this year." He's like, "Hey, send all your drinks to my seats." He told me what seat he sat in. And I didn't realize, I'm new to flying international and not thinking all the drinks are free. So by my third or fourth drink of me sending it to his, oh, it's on Sam again. And she's like, "They're all free." Like she finally in broken English tells me, like, lets me in on the joke. I'm so drunk by then. I'm like, "Oh, I'm going for it anyway. We're gonna have 12 of these things on Sam."
Man.
No, it was great. But then to your point, when we got to Japan, you're jet lagged, things are weird. The sun comes up, but you're sleepy, or the sun didn't come up and you're whatever it is. Those
Plus you're
vending
hungover.
machines, well, those vending machines sell beer. Like you can buy them.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So me and Rick Rostein were roommates. He picked me.
Interesting grouping.
Yeah, well, he thought I was kind of normal.
Well, he
Whatever.
found out, didn't he?
Didn't he? So we went and found out the vending machine gave out beer until early hours, and I actually was addicted to fishing at the time and had a old credit card with fishing line wrapped around it and some fishing flies. And I actually went down and I thought I was catching fish out of this creek, but it turned out it was just connected to the stocked pond at the amusement park. I was like, "This is amazing. I'm in Japan. I'm catching trout out of a creek." And the next day we realized oh, it's attached to the stocked pond, like at 300 feet away.
And when the sun came up, you saw that water was chemically blue.
Yeah. I probably lost 3 points of honor or something in some D&D game. I don't know. I'm playing.
Well, they let you back in the country at least the next year, so it wasn't too.
I have not been back. No, I haven't been back. No, and to this day, I'm not so sure we didn't get kicked out of our hotel that night at 6 a.m.
Were you drinking with Sam?
No, I started drinking with Cam Roundhorst.
Oh, okay. Well, that's on the same level.
But we started at noon. And then around 6 a.m. when Avery was packing our stuff in the hotel, and I'm not sure Avery was smacking me because he's not violent in general, but his level of aggression was higher than usual. And I felt like we were in a panic to maybe not make our plane. And the hotel had pretty much come and knocked at our door, told us to quit throwing Monopoly money out of the window because it was $40 on the ground outside. So it was a big long story, but anyway, bad choices, got expensive late in the day. But I will say this, there was no cleaner McDonald's on earth than at the airport at McDonald's in Tokyo. It's
interesting. I didn't go to the McDonald's at Tokyo airport, but it was pretty amazing experience overall, all the way down.
Not generally into McDonald's, but they do have a teriyaki burger there that was pretty phenomenal.
Okay, so that's 2004. Let's bring it up one more year.
All right. In 2005, you played 25 events. You cashed at every event. You got 9 wins, including the mixed doubles with Angela Chick Fry. And you edged out Jay and Des by 2 strokes. And then, well, let's talk about that right there. That's some power. That's some power mixed doubles golf right there between those 2 teams.
Yeah, that's one of the best. Just mixed doubles is a phenomenal format because it is a juxtaposition between the pro caliber of the female and the male, and the distance and the alternate shot and the different ways that you have to play. It's a unique style that we play at the professional level. And it can be very challenging, especially if it's your significant other. So I always look at those mixed doubles, win or lose, as some of the most exciting, challenging formats that we play, and some of my favorite times in that tournament, especially with Angela coming off of a women's nationals title, and you know, 05 Worlds was in Allentown. That was Nate Doss's first win. That was
Right.
those courses. If you know them, there's some really tricky, challenging shots around those creeks and rivers at Little Lehigh, and there's some really epic moments I'll never forget out there. And that tournament, playing against Anders and Brigida, just loved it. I love those events. I wish I would get to play more of them, but it's they're kind of few and far between for me now these days. But mixed doubles is phenomenal. I always look forward to them at Worlds and follow them really closely. So
And you locked
Interesting.
horns with Jay and Des in many years. Either you win or they
yeah,
won.
they won the next year by 2. Came down to the final hole again, and I juiced it off the green and didn't give us a putt for birdie. And Nate Doss was also there that day. Right. Probably should have clubbed down. He's smart. God, is he a smart player?
And a brand new daddy, by the way.
I know. I'm so
Right.
excited. We just visited Ben. Got to go out to I didn't bother him but we got to go see Jim Tobish and out for when we were out for Selinsky. So
Nice.
Nice. Yeah, I went
next time I'll
skiing.
bother him.
I skied Bachelor in February, and I visited all of them. I got to see we had Sharon, Nate and Val and Cam over for dinner at our Airbnb, which is awesome. And then we also got to do the putting night at Bevel, which was fun.
Did you shoot eggs over the canyon at Tobish's?
No, we didn't do that, but I did go and spend the day with him and had a great time. Him and Brenda for a little while. And he's a very unique individual. I love Jim. He's awesome.
I mean, if you're going to have a spirit animal, why wouldn't you pick him?
Yeah, that's a good point, man. That's a really good point. Yeah, it's I had a great time with those guys up there. That's a beautiful place on the earth, without a doubt.
Yeah, I love Oregon. It's my favorite state. Absolutely, to visit.
So we're going to talk a little bit about the Kansas City Wide Open, and obviously 05 was a pretty big deal there for you. You pulled off the win there. It was worth $1,655, and I have to think that being from Des Moines and KC being right down the road, and I mean obviously you grew up in a hell of a spot for disc golf, but then there's KC right down the road, and so like we talked about, and we're having Halk on later this week, but one of the things we used to say around here, and I think that it probably even bled up into Iowa a little bit, but maybe not as rampantly as it was around here, although you were right there with Clue, so this may have been something you heard too, but everybody used to say, who are you going to Round Rock with? And that was the thing, like as early as the VPO the previous year, people would start talking about who they're playing doubles with in the spring. And I know it's not a doubles event going down to Kansas City, but I'm sure there was also a lot of lore around Des Moines about going to Kansas City when you go into the Wide Open and being a part of all that. So what do you remember about that kind of thing? I mean, was that something that you guys all talked about, and everybody looked forward to going to the Wide Open as well?
As Matt Fausch won the 97 as an AM, and I thought he was as good as Climo because I had no idea. I thought he won AM Worlds, but it was just the KC Wide Open. That's how big I thought it was.
Yeah.
I went down in 2000 for my first time, and I didn't get into the tournament, but they said, hey, you can still get in, but you have to drive across town and you got 15 minutes, that type of thing. And I went, I'm good. I'm just going to spectate. And it was the best thing ever happened to me. It's one of those formative moments where I could have played and I wouldn't be the player I'm today. Instead, what I did was I went and watched Climo, Stokely, Barry Schultz, and LaRon Harris. I watched them play 4 straight rounds of golf, and I watched Climo throw up shots short of the basket and curl to the pin. he was landing 10, 15 feet short and curling to the basket. I didn't even know discs. I didn't know you could aim short of the basket. I thought you just had to gun it. You know, like I had no idea how to play golf. I watched what Barry was doing. I watched what Stokely was doing. I got to see this huge variation in styles.
Yeah.
LeBron, good Lord.
Yeah,
I mean,
right. I mean, you're talking about a pack, all sizes of packages.
yeah.
You know, I mean, between LeBron and Stokely, and then the other two stops in the middle. I mean, that's pretty much stair steps almost. You know, I mean, Kenny and Barry are pretty similar in heights, but yeah, that's definitely 4 different games.
Go ahead and mix in Mike Randolph a year later. I see him at the 2000. No, it's a 2000 Call to Arms in Omaha. He was like to drive over from Colorado to play that, and that was like kind of a halfway for us, really double for him, but 3 hours for me and 6 for him, or 8 or whatever it is. But he would play those. Well, he caught me mimicking his deep dig putt that, and then I'm copying that putt, and he sees me and I pretend like, oh, you didn't see me mimicking you or whatever. And I end up incorporating that. And then some of Barry Schultz and his deep dig, and Climo with bowing the leg out. And then you flash forward and we had, it's me and George Smith go to St. Louis and we do a clinic where Nico's 13 and now Nico's deep digging like Mike Randolph. And like this is all this big organic thing. So everything I have is just thankful that I got to go watch a lot of these other players. And that's what the thing is happening today. And I'm sorry, I'm way off topic, but the feedback loop that the players are getting today is what's making them accelerate so quickly. They don't have to wait for cool shots. Like I said, they don't have to wait for hot shots. They get
it's there on the, yeah.
They can watch live, and they can watch slow motion. They can, there's more content than they can process, and they get a feedback loop, and they can actually process their game in a mimicked way where we had to wait for it, see it, witness it. It was rare. Jay Redding is self-taught. Wrap your mind around that.
Right.
Yeah.
Him and Des were both self-taught, and only late in their careers did they start to incorporate a lot of their clinics that they went and witnessed and things. But obviously they tweaked their game along the way. But in the beginning, it was all self-taught.
It's pretty amazing.
Clean hands.
One of the things that Mason and I have talked about is if you have a top level pro in whatever region, many of the people who grow up learning the game will play very similar to that one person.
I mean,
we talk about the Jeff Malton effect in St. Thomas, and virtually all those guys putt and throw a rock like Jeff Malton. And goddamn, the only reason why I wish I was ever close to St. Thomas was so I could have learned that way.
The only reason. Oh my God.
Well, come on.
Hey, I know. Hey, listen, I remember what you used to say about St. Thomas, and I'm not repeating it on here.
That's not safe for. Yes.
Timmy Gill has clones, players that.
Well, for sure. I mean, and it depends on where, when you came up. And like when we came up, there was, we had Mike Sayre, Matt Franks, Craig Leyva, Sam Rizzotti, I mean, like those 4 guys alone, and then there was 3 or 4 guys that were right behind him, like Rob Knight.
You didn't the Okies.
And then don't even don't even want to discount any of those guys. But I'm just saying, like when we came up here, those were the veterans, and they weren't veterans. You know what I mean? Like going to Oklahoma, those guys were getting their butts kicked by those guys, by Mitch and Clint and Johnny Mac and all those other Okies. Shoot, Kevin and Voschek were just rookies at the top back in those days. Those guys were coming up then too. And so it's it depends on whether did you grow up under somebody's umbrella in terms of your game, or did you just buy a bunch of Frisbees and take a break from football practice, volleyball practice, or whatever. It's drastically different ways to come up with your game. And none of that influence really did any good for me anyway. So
yeah, like I said, I didn't have Jeff Malton here. I had Alex Hughes, how to learn to putt with a Viper. Dude. So let's talk about 2006. You've already mentioned Barry. You in 2000 get a chance to stand there and spectate and watch Barry up close. Now skip forward to 2006, and it's really a 2-horse race between you and he pretty well the whole year. You guys were certainly in the NT series, you guys were so far ahead of third place, wasn't even considered. And I know it's a great story about the points race and how it came down to the last tournament of the year for you, and whether you were going to fly all the way across the country to a C tier just to seal up the points. But before we get there, you start the year, well, not start, but certainly one of your biggest statements at the beginning of the year is your finish at the Memorial. You finish second to Barry by 4 strokes, and you get your biggest cash out at a single event ever. And that leads to your Solomon sponsorship. So that's starting your huge tour year that year. How you feeling in Arizona? How you feeling going into the rest of the year from that?
Yeah, it was an amazing way to start the year, hitting I think I averaged 10:58 that tournament, and my putting was good. The problem I was having was, this is funny, I say it this way, is that I was losing to Davery a lot. I was living with them and losing to them every day, and it was really that 10% variance that I wasn't. This is where I had to go to school later to realize what I was experiencing, but I was realizing some pretty strong gains while still losing to these guys. And it came to fruition when I got to the big tournaments and started to actually put it all together. But it was really hard, like daily, not playing at that level or feeling like you're not at their level, because they throw farther and they, the rest of the game, I think we were all relatively equal, but they just had distance on me that I didn't have. So I had to make up for it in other ways and get crafty. But no,
What's
it
the
felt
age
really
difference
good.
there?
What's that?
What's the age difference there? They're both pretty similar in age. How much difference is there between you all and them two?
I think I'm 5 years maybe older.
5 years older. Okay.
4 or 5. So.
How long did you live with those guys out in Oregon?
That was my 06 tour. So I had a little change in life and messaged Dave one day and said, "Hey, you saw that room for rent?" And he said, "Yeah." And he goes, "As a matter of fact, I'm driving through Des Moines in 2 weeks." And I was running a contract for Tony Wayne, who was friends with Rick Rothstein. George Smith had put me in touch with a guy, Tony Wayne, who's an old school disc golfer, and it's the beautiful world of disc golf. And he actually got me into a job where I was able to hire my disc golf friends and run a contract where we did third-party service, kind of like you do, Mace. Where in a way we were going into people's houses and we were taking apart pool tables and washers and dryers and swing sets and putting them back together and doing that sort of thing. So I'd hire my friends, do all this, and then what was the question there? Because I'm going to get off a little bit on that. I know Dave and Avery. So I'm doing that contract with Tony and doing this, and it's a great thing. And all of a sudden I have a little bit of a weird shakeup in my life, breakup in a relationship. And I just said to my cousin, "Will you take over the contract?" And he goes, "Yeah," because I'd been hiring him quite a bit. And 2 weeks later, Dave's picking me up and throwing my Trinitron in a car with my air mattress. Can you imagine how big a Trinitron is? That's literally what I took to Oregon.
Dude.
So just to let you know how prepared I was.
30 or something?
It was a big one. Yeah, it's one of them ones that'll break your back.
Like it takes up a whole car seat.
Yeah, it was like, I just laid on it, full ride. So anyway, insane. And
But you knew neither one of them was going to have a TV that was better, right?
They conned me into it. I don't know. It was at the moment. It seemed
they were like, "We got the video game. You bring the TV."
It was fine. I think we got the RV out there later on that year. I drove their RV around the country and got it ready, kind of stationed it for them.
This is what I want to hear about. I didn't know this story. I was still on tour at the time, but I didn't realize that you were being the shuttle puppy for the RV.
Yeah, and I wasn't good at it because they weren't good at it either. We weren't good at having an RV at the time because it was like the tires were junk. I blew like 3 tires on the way to
Wait a minute. Was this Round Horse RV?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So this is
like on its like last leg. I mean, it lost in a poker competition. It was in bad shape. It was leaking. It was, so I drive it and I blow tires in Burns, Wyoming. I blow tires in North Platte. And I finally get like $500 worth of tires later. I make it into Des Moines and at 3 a.m. because I made it to the tire shop at 5 p.m. They kind of said we're closed, and I said, well,
Come on.
I
Help
need
a
you to
brother
be
out.
open. And so they let me in, and I made it to 3 a.m. I ended up, that was where we played the Des Moines Challenge. My first Des Moines Challenge I won by 9 strokes over Kale. And
Incredible.
because of course, I just had to move away. I had to get in at 3 a.m. blowing tires right and left, like sleep deprived. I needed
Sleep
all
4 hours and then show up.
It's weird
That's
how life works. And we skipped over where the year before I actually won the KC White Open, right? It's by 6 over Climo.
That's right.
But I want one of the funny things about that was that there was a guy that most people won't know this story, was that there was a guy who kicked Timmy Gill's disc back in bounds. Because you wanted me to have a story about some people, and I thought, man, Timmy and Timmy beat me enough. I could tell plenty of stories about that, but the time where Timmy was an upstanding citizen many times in his career, this guy had been drinking vodka all day out of a water bottle, watching our rounds, and he was my biggest fan, I thought, but he was really a Timmy Gill fan secretly, because he kicked Timmy's Gill back in bounds, his disc back in. Clearly it had been out of bounds. I'm winning by like 5 or 6 in an NT, and I'm like, it gets a little tense at the moment, and then finally Timmy goes, there's no way my disc would have landed you. And he dispels all of the tension and just removes it. He goes, and somebody yelled liar from up on the hillside. So anyway, all of that panned out, finished the round. Ken Climo, I chain out of my second to last hole, and he snapped his neck over like a shark in the water. I remember thinking like, wow, he never thinks he's out of it. Like he could see a chunder coming a mile away. He thought for sure I had stumbled, and I made the comeback, which could have turned into another rollaway OB. Any number of things could happen. Plus 18 was brutal that year with a little double Mando. When I threw the shot under the basket, I turned around and I was all of a sudden off my feet, like when my grandpa was mad at me as a kid. But this time it was Climo bear hugging me. Such a champ. So anyway, I did want to tell that story because he did ask me to have that in my pocket. But then, yeah, going into the next year with getting into the Memorial, getting that momentum going, and Barry Schultz was definitely a different type of champ I had to counter. So,
well,
they're two different beasts.
I still think that's an amazing story. You're driving the RV across the country and winning the Des Moines with like not even squeaking by with the win, but just putting a dominating mark on it.
No, I almost squeaked by parking it under the bridge that night, though, when I parked the RV under the bridge. That's what Mace wants to know about. So that night I took, because Matt Oram was on tour, and he was 18, and he jumped in with me at that tournament. His dad, Jim Oram, called me and said, hey, Matt, he needs somebody to tour with, and I trust you, Chris. Will you let him in or whatever? So Matty O and I went on tour after that. But that night I showed Jim what a responsible individual I was by driving the feelers that tell you if you can make it under the bridge.
Yeah.
I made it under, and it didn't touch the air conditioning. I just right under it, but it ripped that air conditioner right off the bridge because it didn't have the thing on the bridge. You know what I'm talking about, right? When those feelers come down, but they're divided in the middle, and the AC went right through there. I didn't feel anything. We're clear until I heard it rip, and then I just had to floor it because
otherwise you get
I
stuck.
replaced that. I won $1,000. My dad, bless his heart, repaired the roof of the RV. He like basically refurbished the RV for us. Me and Matty O went in his little Honda on road. My dad put a new AC on for $700 and repaired the whole roof so it didn't leak the rest of the tour. So it was actually kind of a weird, again,
A benefit.
Guys, right? Everything we do is sword in the fire. So we learn the hard way. Sometimes we spend our whole check, right?
But you got
and bless my dad, he made me pay for it. He could have been like, he could have bailed me out, but he knew I'd screwed up. It's a good father.
Well, yeah, there's no reason. I mean, like if he did all the work, you got to at least put a little coin back in his pocket.
He took the whole check, man. He took the whole check.
That was part of partial payment for another lesson.
It wasn't even like a $350 half, nothing. He was like, no, plus labor. I love it.
Well, as long as it didn't leak for the rest of the tour, that's all that matters, right? So 2006 was another many reasons why it was such a big year, but there's two reasons that won't be celebrated on the PDGA archive. We've already talked about holes in the record, but this was because neither of these events were sanctioned. One, which I'm going to talk about, is Toronto, but I'm teeing this up for Mace, talking about the Marshall Street Disc Golf Championships. Talk about that.
Which one of us?
You. Let's
He
start with
feed it
Mace.
for you.
All
He-
right, so here we go. Marshall Street Disc Golf Championships. Steve Dodge was quick to remind everyone of an early MSDGC, which Chris Sprague overcame Barry Schultz's 6-stroke lead in the final round to take the victory. You want to show the video, B?
Okay, you guys start talking. I'm gonna look for the video.
He had he shot 2 course records. Barry did.
In that tournament?
Yeah, he was up 5 after hole. He was up 5 with 14 holes to play. And I took the lead on hole 14.
That's crazy. I've never been there before. I've heard lots of great stories.
It's deservedly #1 course. The amount of effort and upgrades and constant improvement, continual improvement is epic there. The course just gets better every year. The attention to detail, the camaraderie, the vibe is huge. It's just phenomenal.
I wonder if that's one of the biggest modern unsanctioned events, like maybe in the last 10 years or more.
That was actually at the time.
I guess it was more than 10 years ago.
The only reason I got into that event was because Avery and Dave were at the European Open and I got an invite.
Right.
And then fortunately, Schwebby didn't show up, so I made it into the ace skins. And so I actually got a practice round in and won a little money for being 10-19 rated at the time. So I didn't practice the courses because I didn't cash at the Glass Blown in Emporia, one of the early Glass Blowns. It was just windy and I was on tour. I was burned out, didn't cash. I did not feel like practicing the courses. They were all wooded. I thought, man, what are you going to learn? It's like I got to play like 4 different layouts and I'm not getting, it's like diminishing returns type situation. So I just went ahead and enjoyed the environment, the camaraderie, the party that was going on. And ended up being like one of the best experiences ever. And actually, if you've ever watched that DVD, it's one of the best DVDs ever because he takes the time to tell a story about each player. He doesn't just say, oh, this is what happened on hole 1, this is what happened on hole 2. He says, no, Navad Hosnain shouldn't be here according to his PDGA number, but after some smooth drives and some big putts, he finds himself on the lead card after day 1, and he shows all of his highlights for 5 or 6 holes in a row, and suddenly you're on Team Navad Hosnain. You're like, let's go.
Nice, yeah.
Involved with the player, and Steve did a great job of getting you emotionally involved with each player's journey, and that's really something you don't see in the videos today. It's kind of just cookie. No offense to the great quality.
They don't have time for
it's
it.
cookie cutter. PDGA is the same as PGA. We really need those stories and that energy that makes you emotionally attached, and maybe that's that post-production stuff.
Well, that's part of the background behind this show too, is just that, like I've been saying that for a really long time, that, I mean, like, and I'm not trying to blow my own horn here, but that was the whole basis of the radio show back in the day at USDGC, was telling the stories and, and doing the interviews of all the people that have won, and then interviewing other people as well. And we're luckily in this year, we're getting to introduce a little bit more of that back. Although it won't be part of the broadcast or anything for USDGC, but we're going to be broadcasting live at times, doing some interviews from the vendor village. And,
no, that was its time. You guys were ahead of your time. The USDGC was always cutting edge in that way, and that's why the MSDGC was that way in their own way. They had their own cutting edge things they were doing, but the USDGC was on the highly professional. You guys took it to another level.
It's going to be off the hook this year, dude.
That's the stage for what we're seeing today.
It's the 25th, man. You should get in the car and come on out. We're going to have a great time for sure.
Qualify on Monday.
Hey, well, you better get in. I don't know what the time frame is on that, but it's not like it used to be.
No, I know. I'm just joking.
So this is one of the problems with the official archive of disc golf history, is that you can't go back unless you know where to go on that website. And I know that Stephen Dodge and Marshall Street, those guys have got their ducks a lot more in the row than we do on the Toronto Island. I'm pretty sure that the records don't exist at all. That's 3 computers ago for me, but all the memories are still up here. That was your first time coming to Canada. Why don't we've already kind of done some teasers about talking about the Vinyl Factory and all. So just talk to us about your Toronto experience in 2006.
I left my heart in Toronto. I love that place. Just leave it there. But I came back for another week after I left. I stole Mattio's car and drove back into Toronto and spent an additional week up there. I don't know. There's something about that island and taking that ferry out to the course and the energy of the club and the history, especially just
The energy of the city as well.
yeah, absolutely. All that my favorite part was some sidewalk chalk art that we came across. I can't remember the band that we were watching play. There was some band playing down there. There's some chalk art on the sidewalk that was probably the kind you don't want to fall into.
Right.
It was like next level graffiti.
Yeah.
And I was just like, yeah, it felt like, you know what Toronto felt like was New York City, approachable New York City. I felt like it had a lot of that energy of New York City without being too big, too much, too everything, and clean. It was nice and clean. Yeah, I loved it.
The famous
But yeah,
actor Peter Ustinov called Toronto New York as if it was run by the Swiss.
yeah, because we left Toronto, we went to Buffalo and then New York City, and that's just not the progression. You
That's
can't-
definitely two steps in the other direction.
That's
Yeah,
a different
it's different.
direction. But as I recall, we did skins that year for the top 4 pros.
Yeah.
And Kim I think he was doing the whole play pro locally and decline cash so he could play go to the AM Worlds. But because we didn't sanction that event,
He could
got
cash.
into the skins and he ended up taking the cash. And I might have been the first one. I think we started the skins at hole 4 where the bridge is where Snake Island is. And what we had started in 2005, we started the Ontario Disc Tour, the OD Tour, as it were. And our thing was with water, play it as it lies if you want. If you want to take the stroke, okay, use it as OB, but it's just water. It's not going to hurt you. Go in there and throw if you want to.
Shallow.
That hole was the canal hole, and you came up a little short and landed in the canal. Here's the skins, and there's a huge gallery in there. And now, correct me if I'm wrong. Did you or did you not do a cannonball into where your lie was?
I don't remember.
I wouldn't put it past you, though. That's for sure.
It was a left-handed putt though against the wall. I remember that. I remember it was like 35-foot lefty putt. That was amazing. Like the idea of being able to play out of the water. We had a similar tournament where we had a foot of snow melt in Chicago, and the whole 300 foot of the fairway was covered in a foot of ice melt. And if you threw into the water, you'd have to take your casual relief all the way back 300 feet to almost the tee. And I was only 27 feet from the hole. So at the time you could take your shoes off. So I just took my shoes off and went into that water. And that was probably the hardest putt of my career. The way it shocks your system, steals your breath. Now calm down and make this very manageable putt that normally doesn't seem that hard. Like seems very, like 27 feet is kind of touchy, but not, it's like, okay, but you get into that ice melt and suddenly it's the hardest putt you've ever seen. It's almost like winning the MSDGC. Yeah, we were talking about MSDGC, I suppose. Winning that 15-footer felt similar. Felt like backyard, make this 15-footer and you win the tournament. How do we not screw this up? How does this 15-footer not go in the basket? It should be. That was incredible.
So, do you remember, did you win the Toronto tournament? I know you cashed.
No, I got third.
Third, okay.
Avery won.
Avery. But I remember you really wowed the crowd because the island requires a lot of low ceiling shots. Really, you don't have a lot of wide fairway to play with. You got to throw it low and straight with a lot of power. And I remember you were just throwing some smoking shots, and everybody was just, who is this guy? Who? Because they all knew who Avery was. Avery been coming
Yeah.
for 7 years by that time, but nobody knew, like, if they didn't by then, they did after that weekend know who Chris Sprague was. Well,
Yeah, that was
certainly,
a good season. That was a good year.
well, that was you may not have hit the win that mark. You did win a bunch of events on the tour in 06, and that leads up to your double century club mark there. That's really amazing. Maybe I'm kind of stepping on Mace's toes here. Sorry, Mace.
It's all right. It's all right. We've kind of gone off script at this point, so we're just bouncing around a little bit. But yeah, so I think I also think that's very impressive that you've got 100 wins and you've got over 100,000 in tournament cashes over your career, and
Crossed them on the same day, which was weird. My 100th win was actually when I crossed. Somebody came up to me at the end and was like, "Oh, you crossed 100,000 today too."
Wow.
So it was
What's-
all on the same day.
Was that the Mississippi Open or the Mid
Yeah.
America Open? Okay, Mississippi.
I think it was 43 or 44. I didn't play Masters because I had that goal in mind. I wanted to get the Open wins. I didn't, I had a capture and other things, but I really wanted to be in the 100 Open wins. And so I kind of avoided playing Masters. My ego got in the way a little bit, and I watched a lot of money opportunity go away. I saw some $1,000 checks. Like, oh, that was really good money you turned down today, but you played good enough to win by 9. And so I really, like, once I got to that 100 Open, then I started playing Masters. And then I realized, like, wow, all these guys in Masters now are really good after COVID. There's so many great players that have just started playing recently, and they're only like maybe 960 or 970 rated, but they pop off all the time. They're on their way up, so they're playing above their rating a lot of times. And you meet them, and you're like, oh, I should beat him. That's fine. He's only this rated, and then he shoots 1,000 average on the weekend, and you're like, wow, he's not going to be that rating for long. And that's really great. One of the cool things about the sport right now is the amount of competition, and all the tides raising all boats. So the Masters are getting a lot of that influence from the sport blowing up. So it's nice.
well, the other thing that goes along with that too is that the fact that the group that we came up in is still pretty big, and so like when I went to Masters Worlds for the first time this year, and I'd been wanting to do that since they separated, knowing that I was going to know more people at that event than I would at the Pro Worlds. And so, and just looking forward to the hugs and everything and just seeing everybody. And it was awesome. I had a great time there. I only got to stay a couple of days because I was pressed to get to Tacoma for a glass project, but that's one thing that catches me. It caught me off guard probably the first 4 or 5 times that they've had it, that, the 60 and over division's got a monster division at that event. The 50 and over division is like 90 players, and it's just like, I mean, it's a who's who. It's the people we've been playing with our whole disc golf careers. And then the 40-year-olds, people like Kale and Steve and so many of these 40-year-olds that's a fire. That's a
young.
power
Some
pack
of them are
division.
so young now. I'm like, oh my God, he's a young 40.
Yeah.
But I'm playing like, but then I'll play an Open and I'll do fine, right? But then I'll play in Masters and the 39-year-olds seem suddenly like daunting. It's weird.
You're like looking at them like you used to look at 19-year-olds.
No, but then I'll play like Open against a bunch of 20-year-olds and I'm not. I don't know. There's a weird thing that changes when you're playing Masters. It's a different mindset. I don't know what. Yeah, if you're playing Open, it's like, oh, he's old like me. It's weird. Masters is strange. It's nice every once in a while. Like I just shot my 3rd highest rated round in my career, 4th highest rated round when I was 46. So it's kind of nice to know that there's no real disc golf doesn't really have a ceiling. When you watch Johnny, I got emotional watching him come off his heart attack and Leadstone, or Worlds rather, at Northwoods Black. And I'm like, what are my excuses? I'm like, I just gave him a big hug, and I'm like, what kind of excuses can I come up with in my life, to not be as great as I can be? So Johnny's been a big inspiration. I was on his, when he won Worlds in 04, I like bumped climb off the lead by shooting the hot round at Peter Pan. That was 2016 Worlds in Emporia, and ended up making the final four, and I was 3 strokes away from a world title. Felt like it was in my grasp. And so a little double bogey on the first hole. Now I have 8 holes and a hole, 5 strokes. My world's dreams kind of came down crashing quick. You have 9 holes in that final, and you can't open up. I did it too little too late when Johnny's in the mix, but like I said, when you look at someone who's gone through what he's gone through, or, and I've gone through my own health issues, and
Yeah.
I almost died a few years ago with the COVID thing, not pre-COVID, whatever that was, and lost like 30 pounds in 12 days. And, it kind of opens your eyes, and I lost all my muscle mass, had to rebuild it all back. But then I had these excuses, right? Then Johnny goes off and tries to die on us, and then pops off and shoots 1050 golf. And you're like, well, what are your excuses? Come on.
Yeah, that's
Like,
kind of
you
hard.
almost died. He almost died. We all have problems. Get over it.
It's interesting where you find your yardstick. I just, on the way home from that trip to Tacoma, I went, for the second time I went through the Black Hills. The first time Brandon and I went up there to spread some of Craig's ashes. And so the second time that I've been to the Crazy Horse Memorial, and it was just really amazing to see what they had done since we were there last. But the thing that still stands out to me more than anything else is that, you know what it's like in South Dakota. I mean, it could snow in June and it could snow in August, but June, July, and August are the only good months you're going to get out of the year. And the first year in 1948, the first year that Korshak spent on that project, the first 8 months, he lived in a tent in South Dakota. And then on top of it, he built a 741 step staircase up the side of that hill, and he climbed it every day. He talked about one time he had to climb down 9 times to restart the generator on the same day. And I was like, I've never had a hard day in my life. You listen to that kind of thing, and that it was probably nasty. He slept in a tent. It was 30 most of the time if he was lucky, and other times it was late. And so, like, it's interesting, that you find your where you find your yardstick. You just got to gauge it there.
I was naked and afraid to prep myself for tournaments I know are going to be tough, and I'm like, well, you could be naked.
Well, I was just going to give credit to Johnny. I wasn't going to give credit to Nick.
We have all kinds of tools in our toolkit, don't we?
That's pretty interesting, though, because you got Johnny on that card, Shasta Chris, who's an awesome cat, and then Smitty just picks up his title this summer.
I know. I was so excited.
You edged the champ off of that card, so that's also another interesting factor because, I remember going to the Triple Crown in '98, and everybody like looking at me going, "Dude, you don't realize that we play for second around here," and that was everybody but Johnny McRae saying that. And Johnny McRae was one of the few people at the time that could beat the champ. Didn't happen often, but it did happen. So that's interesting, that you see where that's all come from and where it's all going to. And, and Johnny's still super solid, and he's still with us.
Well, listen, we've been holding our guest up here pretty long. This has been a long time going. We don't want to get through this without having to we're going to have to cut some of our intended script, but I definitely want to mention, you've already said a few things here, and it certainly bears repetition and observation here, but you have a real remarkable facility in explaining things. You're very good at coaching. You're very good at crystallizing ideas. I've heard you on a couple other, you're in the podcast and with Scott Stokely. And it's obvious that you're a natural mentor, a natural teacher. And you've already talked about how with kids nowadays, like say again in Burr, who gets really good, really young, and has a lot of success early, they need someone to be also kind of their life coach as well as their agent. And I really think that this could be something you could, if it's an area that could be mined for the future, you would definitely make one of the great figures of the role model because you know how to win, but you also know how to keep it real. You've got some great life lessons from your dad. And I think you've got a hell of a lot to offer the future of disc golf just for some of these pros and some of these young kids to keep them grounded. Have you always been a natural mentor?
I think so. I believe disc golf. Yeah, I mean, I think disc golf just provided an opportunity for me because I could see the game differently, and I could somehow put it into words. I don't know that I was ever this good in other, explaining other things, or that I focused on it or was aware of it. But in disc golf, I really love to see people blossom. That's kind of my excitement. If I can take a video of somebody before I get my hands on them and then just show them some very basic remove excess motion and get them to kind of clean up and remove. Basically, I don't teach people to throw, I just teach them to remove excess motion. And then they find out who they are and what they can do. And then we kind of trim it up from there. But whenever I get to do that, it's just great. I get chills. For me, it's exciting. It's hard. At the end of the day, my face hurts when I do lessons or clinics. I'm exhausted. It's an investment of energy, but I do like to see people, for instance, Kathy Betcher, my ex, we're really good friends. She's great. She was ready to quit playing disc golf. She was a women's amateur national champion, but she was having shoulder problems. And I could, some of the things that I incorporate in my game and some of the techniques that I use and some of the things that I avoid are very key. And so I look for those little things, and she was just following through with her thumb up. That was it. And so when she would follow through with her thumb up, her elbow would hyperextend, her shoulder would hyperextend to try to prevent the injury to the elbow. And so it was this progression of constant stress. And it wasn't that she couldn't handle it because she was strong, but she was constantly stressing that. And so eventually it gave in and tore. So what I got her to do is, instead of thumb up, it was just a simple sideways thumb down. And now, 15 years later, she's playing, no shoulder injuries, no elbow injuries. She's not in pain. She's winning. She's doing fine. She's enjoying the game. That's what drives me, right? I love to help people play the game the way they know that they are capable of. It's not necessarily I can make them be me. I can't even make me be Simon Lazat. So how am I going to make you be me? All I can help you do is be you and remove excess motion. And if I can help you play for a long time, that's a huge thing for me. One of my biggest things is how can I help people play with longevity? How can I help them not hurt themselves? So it's rewarding, and the game's given me a lot. So if I can give a little bit back here and there, and then the best thing is, I don't ever realize it until many years later, is people come up to me and go, "Oh my God, one day you told me this, Philip Hall down in Texas. Oh my God, we're friends today. He's like, you showed me this, I caddied for you during this, the Veterans Open Final 9. He reminds me of things I forgot. He's like, you threw inside, he comes back to me and is like playing today and learned from that and got energy from that. I had somebody cry the other day, my friend, Doug Faust's wife, girlfriend. She was having trouble. And I just said, well, let's just make your miss your make. And we just kind of changed to something because she had bad knees and things from sports in her past. So I just took away the knees and just kind of put her in position where we wanted her to be at the end of the throw anyway, and just took out all the stress. She all of a sudden threw another one in, almost threw another one in from like 150 feet. Nobody, but then started crying. And I realized that's what I wanted. That's what I love. I like to help people be healthy. I like to help them make breakthroughs. And a lot of times it's just about simplifying it, making it easier, and less is more,
There's nothing like that feeling when you turn the light on for someone, and when you get the opportunity to no, don't do that, do this. And sometimes it's just as simple as saying, hey, push down with your thumb, or or eliminate that step. Just do 3 steps
Or
instead of 4,
follow
whatever.
through. How about a
And then-
little Hellberg follow through? Punch your
Well, just
Or like bend your knees and flex, and then stand straight up and putt.
yeah.
Oh,
Barry
wait,
Schultz.
that's
Perfection.
Feldberg for sure. Oh, I got some
Barry
athletic motion in
Schultz
my
used
butt.
to Barry
No, you
used to
didn't.
warm up. He still does. He like crouch down like 10 feet from the basket and then pitch it in real soft. And I teach that today. I'm like, you have to get close to the basket and get comfortable with it and get acquainted with it early on. You don't start 30 feet away. Start with success.
Yeah.
Get close to it. Get acquainted. Shake hands with that basket. Get to know it. Now, there's so many lessons. I could go on all night. I mean, this could be like 7 hours long.
Well, we'd love to have you back. We've always got tons of stuff to talk about, but why don't we wrap this up here with our final 20 questions, kind of a better to get to know you kind of thing.
All right. So 20 questions. And it's we've been rotating them, and I think that we've settled on a pretty good number, or a pretty good set of questions for you, Chris. First one, what's your favorite course that you've ever played?
Oh man, my favorite course I've ever played. Camden 2, the course I built. I love it. I enjoy playing it every day. Now that's not fair, and so I'm going to say Maple Hill. I think Maple
Okay.
Hill is just beautiful, fun, the ponds, the history, the people, the constant continual improvement. It's just phenomenal. I love it.
Okay, what's your favorite tournament that you've played?
Favorite tournament? God, immediately I thought USDGC. I don't know. That just popped right into my mind. I think it's the intensity, the professionalism, the grandeur. It always felt like next level. Just the atmosphere there. It's hard to ever match what the USDGC has done. And I imagine I've seen some of these European tournaments. They kind of start, they're kind of feeling that energy, and there's a lot of great tournaments around. I'm not saying they're not doing great tournaments today, but that USDGC is huge.
Well, it's, I mean, it's in a lot of ways it's leading the way, but there's just so many people with so many good ideas, and so many,
No, it's only
so many people that have been watching for 25 years now, and so I mean, it's got to bleed. It's got to move over. So that's
everybody's got to get better. That's all the tournaments are great today because of all the past tournaments and the gripes and the complaints and the people listening to what people love. That's the key. It's not about the gripes. We can't fix all the gripes, but we can listen to what they love and give them what they love, and that's what draws people. That's what the USDGC.
Without a doubt. What's your favorite disc golf destination?
Oregon.
Nice.
I just love
It's
that's
beautiful.
Selfishly me, that's just the state in general. But no, they have great disc golf. They have great parks. They have great atmosphere, great food. I love it out there.
Yeah, I just got it all. I just got it from the east to the west on this last trip, and man, I'm having a hard time not thinking about going and blowing glass in Oregon next summer, but we'll see what happens with that.
Okay, favorite driver.
Favorite driver? I've been throwing destroyers a lot, but lately I've been throwing this Charger, and it's just a little bit longer, a little bit as controlled as the destroyer. It's giving me a little bit of that extra. I'm really loving the Charger right now.
Nice.
What about a mid-range?
Mid-range, I'm still throwing my 11-time rocks.
All about the rock, baby.
Hard to get away from those.
I can imagine what the answer to this is, but favorite putter isn't still the AVR?
Yeah, it's going to be the big bead AVRs. I like the DX big beads. I used to like the KC, but they're a little harder and slicker, and they made these DX big beads. They're a little grippier and still a little bit on the stability side, pretty stable. Great throwers. When I putt sometimes, I like sometimes to putt with a smaller no bead, something that hits the ground a little softer, doesn't kick up into a roll away. So it was the P1X when Discmania was part of Innova, but now I'm going to have to find another small micro bead, something that doesn't dump out as hard as the big beads.
All right. So 3 answers to this next one. What's your all-time foursome dream card? Who are the other three people?
Oh, Climo. Mike Randolph.
Yeah.
Oh, this is gonna be a tough one.
No, you can't pick 10 people for your fourth spot.
Sam Ferentz.
Sad parents.
I love
Okay,
playing
that's
with
a good
Sam.
one.
That's a
Climo,
good-
Randolph, and Ferentz. That's a really good one.
Okay, so not sure about this one. It kind of fell flat when we asked Stokely about this, but Desert Island, what three books are you taking with you?
What's that? Sorry.
If you're on a desert island, what three books you got with you?
I don't know if these are appropriate. I like when I went on tour, I read On the Road. I read Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. And then the other one was just my field book for geology.
Nice.
I'm such a nerd.
That's all right. It's
That's
quite all right.
beautiful. Beautiful
So what
stuff.
three films would you take on the same trip?
On the same trip, 3 films. I'm taking Old School because I could laugh at the dart in the next scene endlessly.
You're so money.
God, what would I
You don't even
watch?
know.
No, I know, but I would know right now if I saw them. I'd be like, yeah, I'll watch that right now. I'll watch any of the Star Wars. Any of the original Star Wars, probably Empire Strikes Back first though. And then I would watch like Stand By Me.
Nice.
Right on.
But I think I missed my favorite somewhere in there.
All right, so we're
No,
going
that's
to
awesome.
food and drink here. Favorite salty snack? I know you're quite the inveterate snacker. What's your go-to favorite salty snack?
A salty snack? I like anything panko fried, like but yeah, the salted nut roll is a nice.
Nice.
That one gets me sometimes. I go to that.
What's your favorite sweet snack?
Sweet snack is gonna be man, I like gummies.
Okay, nice.
Like the gummy
Okay,
bears.
so if maybe now, maybe 2006, maybe when you're gearing down, you're really zoning in, did you have a favorite tournament meal? The one that you felt was like, this is what's going to power me on a Saturday night into a Sunday victory.
So there's no meals like, so I'm a really weird cat and I lose a lot of weight on the weekends, but I'm a Monday buffet guy. So I have to go find a high quality buffet with a rounded mix of things because when I was on the road, I couldn't afford to keep myself supplied. So Monday was key. And then I just had this thought the other day is I don't know how I ate on tour. Besides Monday buffet, it's kind of a mystery to me how I lived. Like I could barely afford food and tournament entry fees. And I was always like, well, how am I going to pay rent this month? I wasn't doing tour the way that you would pencil it up for someone else. So one of the things I used to do is KJ Naibo was on tour with me and when he was 970 rated and going from the Memorial to LA, and we pulled over on the side of the road and we went to the restaurant and these kids were smoking cigarettes in the back. And I said, hey man, can we get an egg or two? And he said, sure. And he gave me some eggs and I ended up making some roadside chicken nuggets. I called them Gatorade cap nuggets. So I would just take the Gatorade cap and the canned and the eggs, and we'd take some crackers from the gas station and mix it up with some garlic powder, and I would make up these fire, really not good chicken nuggets on the side of the road. But that was my fun food. Anytime we could pull over on the side of the road and eat out of the car, out of the trunk, that was always fun. I don't know why. I can't remember the real meals. There were probably people cooking for us at their homes, but the rest of the time it was just roadside fare.
That's awesome.
All right, so we're gonna go to the other end of the spectrum from that. What your birthday best? On your best birthday, what's your dream meal?
Oh, dream meal? Probably gonna have a nice steak and whiskey, something. Yeah, maybe some
Classic.
Could be Thai food, but I eat Thai food like every day, so I probably would have to go with a nice steak on my birthday. Because damn, down in Texas, we go down there for my work, in Roanoke, where you're from, Mason. If I hit hard 8, I get the meat sweats.
Dude,
And then
love
we
me
went to
some
the
hard eight. That's
what
definitely
is
one of
it?
the. I take my guys to hard eight every year, usually, at least part of the crew, if not the whole crew, during Christmas lights.
There's a place in Keller called Texas Blue or something like that. It's like way out of my price range, but it was on the company dime, and I would go back there just again. Like I'm talking $100 steaks on my birthday. I mean,
Nice.
Yeah,
you're
for
gonna
sure.
do it. Like if you're gonna go and do it, a friend of mine told me just like, make it memorable. Save up.
If you don't take care of yourself, nobody's going to.
Make it memorable. It's like you could spend $25 on a meal that you won't remember, or you could save up for that $100 meal, make it memorable.
And then it's even more memorable if it goes on somebody else's card.
Well, yeah, that's absolutely, especially the company time. Okay, travel outside of disc golf. If you have, or side travel while you've been on the road in the States. Do you have a place that's your favorite, either a city, a state, or a destination in the States that you'd love to just go back?
I take everybody to Yachats, Oregon, and it's because of Cameron Horse. He took me to this little spot where the basalt flows hit the ocean, and all the gravel washes up, and you can find fossils and agates and petrified woods and jaspers.
I'm
Days
gonna
on
go
end.
take one of his tours for sure.
Yeah, you just lay
Maybe
there
two
on
of them.
the beach. I could spend weeks there, and I probably could just retire there. It's just amazing. It never gets old for me.
Nice.
All right. So I'll put the same question outside of disc golf. What's your favorite European destination?
Oh,
If you haven't
European?
been, if you haven't been,
Yeah.
place on your bucket list where you want to go.
Bucket list. Oh, I want to go to Italy. I think quite a bit. Probably.
Venice and Murano are amazing.
It could be talked into like Greece or Serbia or Croatia or any I mean, I'm open, but that's kind of my jam where I want to be.
How about international? Any bucket list places that you haven't been?
I'd like to go to Australia. I think I'd like to do the Barrier Reef and some of that, do a little Australia action. I really loved Chichen Itza going to Mexico. So I would love to go see some of the Mayan temples or maybe visit like Machu Picchu or something.
Nice.
Yeah, that sounds like a good one too. So we're gonna go into hobbies and interests, and this is the final segment. What's your geek freak from the nerd alert category?
So I have this secret way to fall asleep at night. I put on college lectures because they're abundant nowadays on YouTube, and I just fall asleep like I did in college, just straight out. Just put that shit on in 5
I
minutes.
did a lot of sleeping in college too, man. A lot.
You'd be surprised how well it works as an adult as well. So
Really surprising how pissed off instructors get too. It's just crazy.
they don't these days because it's on, I just listened to MIT lectures on the wildest stuff. Like I am overeducated now.
Through
Thank God for
osmosis.
learning by osmosis, exactly. Okay, so classic. I don't know if you're much of an video game player, but from the '80s, what's your favorite classic arcade game?
Oh man, it would be the game Aztec, probably, that was on Commodore 64.
Okay,
It's
I
kind of
remember
like
that.
it was like high level Pitfall, and it was a little bit like Castle Wolfenstein. So, I mean, my jam though is that I'm kind of a minor league Minecraft. Everybody who's familiar with Minecraft's like you're kind of a professional. Like
Nice.
I'm at least a 970 rated Minecraft designer.
That's awesome.
And I build things, and I build automations for my kids. So I host a server for the kids, and I basically build stuff to make them rich. So I build farms, and I job the system because I know how the logic works. So I can basically figure out the logic of the software and what the game's doing, and then just trick it to let me have what I want.
That's hilarious.
There you go.
Back to cheating the system again. Eh? It's like golf with the foot wedge.
Part of the game. It's a sandbox game. There's no cheating.
What's your favorite cartoon from the 80s?
Thundar the Barbarian.
Nice. Okay, final question.
Not too quick of an answer.
Nope, that
No.
was perfect.
That's the appropriate response, right? Like there's no
Exactly.
better. What other answer is there?
Like it's been living with you for the last 30 years. I love it.
I mean, if nobody knows what Thundar the Barbarian is, they need to go Google it right away. It's the best cartoon that got canceled within a year because they realized it was way ahead of its time and they just didn't know what the hell they had unleashed. They were like, oh my God, we can't do this. We did it. Well, not anymore. It's done. There's too much going on. They're not ready for this. But they let the cat out of the bag and we got to enjoy it for a year. So it's fantastic.
Maybe it's good for time for a reboot. You never
I
know.
think so.
Okay, final question. Marvel or DC?
Oh, Marvel.
Nice.
It's no disrespect to DC, but I think when I was in my formative years, Marvel kind of set the stage for like cutting edge comics, and DC was kind of grandpa's. It's a little dusty at the time, and it's not that it hasn't come a long way or changed over time, but Marvel always had my number.
I'm with you on that one. I'll ride or die on that one for sure.
What's Mace saying?
Oh, I don't.
He's
You know, and
Batman all the
I didn't
way.
really get into comics. I was more into the video games and watching cartoons and that kind of thing. So I didn't really. I don't have an opinion on that.
Good.
However, I
Yeah.
do have an opinion on this. I'm going to share some of the people that dropped by on the Facebook Live. Ryan Bevilacqua, John McDaniel, Bruce Hudson, who's one of my all-time favorite disc golfers, Shane Travis Rose, Brad Sargent, Bud Hill,
Nice.
Pat
My favorite
Hamill.
tournament.
Bucky.
Hey, I didn't mention Bud Hill's my favorite Masters tournament right now. I've been enjoying.
Yeah, Bud Hill's
Little hot
awesome.
spot.
Bud Hill's definitely one of those places that, you know, like if you don't know,
Grows
then you
on
need
me.
to.
It grows on
haven't
you. Here's what's interesting about that, Mace. We were down there with a bunch of 4-digit PDJ guys, right? But I'm always up in Iowa with those cats, Bruce Hudson's, all them cats, right?
Right.
We just transplanted ourselves right into the Bud Hill scene, and it was like all those old cats and that same energy.
Oh man,
It was
those
just a
guys are
different
great.
part of the world.
There's so many cool folks like Crawdaddy and obviously Jimmy and his wife are great folks too. I mean, but everybody. I mean, man, I love that area. I love it.
We camp up there for the tournament now. It's just a no-brainer.
For sure. So
Property.
Pat Hamill, Bucky Garrett, Ted Barber, Jamie Callis, Chris Ellis, Chase Roberts, Tom Barnum, Dale Himmeline, Greg Brooks, Carlo Pelg, Jamie Callis. I said him twice, probably. Jeff Johnson and Clint Spurrier. Lots of people stopping by tonight. And man, dude, thanks for stopping by yourself. It's been a great time talking with you.
Man.
Yeah, for sure, man. Without a doubt.
Really awesome.
Derailed you guys quite a bit with my extra commentary, but
that's what it's all about.
Hey, no. We're here to tell your story, not to tell our story, you know. I mean, and that's like I said earlier, one of the things that and I'm not throwing any rocks at the broadcasts, you know, it's hard for them to find any time to tell stories. And there's a lot of stories that need to be told. I mean, just so many stories. I mean, I was sitting there with Keith Murray and Carlo Pell a 3 memorials ago, and we're just going, man, we need to do a show or a book or something. There's just too many, because I mean, like every time I turned around, there was another good story. And we were, you know, and once we get together in a situation like that, we start thinking about, oh, well, you know, like you and I can go back to Graceland, Bellier, and you met up, you know, 2 years, a year before I met you, I believe. And so,
Yeah.
I mean, those things, those kind of stories, they got to come out. They got to get
There's
recorded.
amazing stories. There's so many amazing stories. Like just the sitting with Mike Belchick from California and him talking about how they went on tour, but they never took anything but side roads. Like,
Dude, he hardly ever used the interstates at all. And wait a minute, here's another story. And part of that story that you have to factor in is he knew where every microbrewery was before anybody else did. And so that whole entire trip, he was sipping the suds the whole entire way. Part of the reason he was off the interstate was to find another microbrewery. So he was half cracked the whole entire tour. I had a lot of fun with Belchick that summer, and I didn't even practice what he was practicing because I had to go do mace band doubles as well. So there was no chance of me doing all those back roads and stuff. But it was I'll tell you a story. I'll tell you a story another time about him telling me that he didn't have success on tour. And
yeah,
and then a week later,
I have 2 Texas wins with 2 great stories. One I was half cracked, and you took me to the bar with Landon. And I almost had to fight my way out because I went Simon Lazada and some guy on the pool table. He was like your size and ugly, looked like out of a movie. I was like, oh my God, he wanted to fight me so bad.
was that
Landon,
here, right here in my neighborhood?
yeah.
Oh, nice.
And then the next one was I got my 98th career win at Marble Springs when I was down for work. I went down and played Open. Giggler won Masters, would have beat me in Open, but he played the wrong division, not my business.
Right.
So I'm leaving the tournament and I'm following this lady and this guy to follow. I'm going back with Bryce Lagerbone and Pepper back to their condo thing, and I'm following the wife and him out, and then they go around this van and suddenly the car leaves. So I follow that car for an hour around Austin until the lady pulls into a gas station, like with her pepper spray out. And it's like, why are you following me? I'm calling the cops. I watched them walk around the corner and get in their car and then watch her drive away. It wasn't them at all. The worst. Oh my God, the worst. So anyway, and we had GPS at the time. So this isn't like one of those like
there's no excuse. You should have
story. Yeah.
Where are we going? Yeah.
Absolute trailer
Dude.
trash. I can't believe I did that. But yeah, and she didn't actually spray me down or call the police. So it was cool. She recognized me. I won the tournament. I was like, I won the tournament. Like,
oh, and she was a golfer that you were following?
She was at the tournament.
It was
and
just
had
the wrong
left.
car.
And she's like, this guy's following me. She was like doing evasive maneuvers. I'm like, I can't lose him. Right. So I'm just aggressively following her. It just escalates until she pulls over and like got her pepper spray out. I'm like, oh my God, this is a really big misunderstanding. Anyway, we can end it on that.
There you go.
That's a pretty good one. Thanks for stopping by, Chris. It was a great
That's
time.
why everybody stopped by. They want those stories. I'm telling you.
That's
And that's not even the first time I followed a girl home from a tournament on accident. I swear to God.
And it probably won't be the last.
Snelling's at home laughing right now because he knows that's a true story too. And that was an accident as well because we were following her to the stupid place and she took a thing over to her house and she's like, yeah. And I go, yeah. So yeah, on tour, there's no excuses in this day and age. GPS, use your phone.
It's not like the course directory and the
people.
atlas is your guide. That's for damn sure.
Terrible. You get on a list.
Oh,
anyway.
Well, thank you, Chris. We really appreciate you taking the time here and doing this. And it's just so awesome to see you again after so many years.
Oh, Paul, thank you so much. And thank you, Brian. Always look forward to it.
Anytime. And like I said, I'm planning a pretty big road trip for next summer, and I'll definitely be coming through your area on the way.
All right. Well, hit me up. I got a house, got a place. Been putting people up, spreading the love, just like all the people that put me up over the years. I just can't wait.
There's two things. There's two things in life that I'll never be able to repay: rides to and from the airport, and nights on your couch or in your guest room.
That's right.
Never going to be able to repay all of that.
So awesome. Thank you, guys.
You bet, dude. Have a good one.
Thanks,
Love
my
you.
friend.
You bet. Love you too, brother.
Thank you. Bye.
Good night.